I'm Warren Farrell, and I'm the chair of a commission to create a White House Council on Boys and Men. I'm an author of a lot of books on men and boys, and I'm really pleased today to be interviewing Nakia Douglas. And Nakia Douglas is the principal or the head of the first all-male school in the Dallas area, in the Independent School District of Dallas. And it's a magnet campus that focuses on leadership development and particularly has an emphasis on looking at extended school days, Saturday academies, summer camps, non-traditional sports, which are really crucial, like lacrosse and rowing and golf, and looking at and training students in foreign languages such as Latin, Spanish, and Mandarin. I didn't know anyone that had studied Latin since I studied it about 400, I think it was 400 years ago. And so I'm very happy to introduce Nakia Douglas, who is the principal of that school, and it's also the school district in which he grew up as a boy, and so now returning to be a leader within that school district, which is somewhat the medium and the message connecting here. So welcome, Nakia.
Yes, sir. Good morning. I'm sorry. Good afternoon.
Yeah. Yes. Good morning for me. Good afternoon for you.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about what created the inspiration for the formation of the Barack Obama Male Leadership Academy?
Yes, sir. The research started about 5 years ago. We've had a previously successful all-female academy, the Irma Rangel Young Women's Leadership Academy. And by way of that, we realized the crisis that was happening with our young men. And so the district began their research, and on June 27, 2010, I received my appointment as the principal at that time, the All-Male Leadership Academy at B.F. Durrell. I had a year to study best practices. I studied private, public, and charter from St. Mark's Jesuit Cistercian, Bishop Dunn Episcopal School of Dallas, St. Philip's, KIPP Academy here in Dallas. Also traveled to Chicago to Urban Prep, Bluford Drew Jemison STEM Academy in Baltimore, and then additionally had the opportunity to travel to Beijing and Chongqing, China, to study their school systems there. During that time, I spoke with principals, headmasters, teachers, students, parents, alumni, board members, what's worked, what hadn't worked, and if you were starting a new school, what would you put in place? And took all of that information and research and melded it into the work that we're doing here now at the Barack Obama Male Leadership Academy.
So as you traveled the world, what were some of the things that you saw seem to really work, and what were some of the things that sort of people thought would work but just in practice didn't work?
Some of the key things were remaining very intentional in everything that you do, tying everything in regards to your work, to your mission, to the young men, or in some instances, dual gender campuses, the students that you were serving, but then more importantly, having a focus on student excellence and an unrelenting desire to make sure that all students and faculty and staff that were serving those students held those same standards. And moving that work forward, there were best practices from campus to campus that I recognized. When you look at a lot of the charter school systems that are having the greatest success, they have the extended school day. When you look at the private school sector, you look at the alumni support, you look at the community foundation supports that support those work. But in all of them, one key thing was professional development. You can't expect the teachers to deliver the proper or the best instructional strategies unless you're preparing them for such. And so each summer, about a month, our teachers spend with us where they go through AVID strategies, land the foundation, college board, project-based learning. So they're totally immersed within that work. And then we also bring in Dr. Sachs for our single gender studies. And not only does he do this with our parents, but with our teachers, but he also does it with our parents and young men also.
So you have this so what does Dr. Sachs, teach that allows people to see the difference between the way they would normally teach and work with a mixture of boys and girls versus the focus here on boys?
Specifically strategies that if you're in a single gender campus, be it male or female, that you will find the greatest success with those students. So for instance, we understand that young men are very competitive. If you've seen the Harry Potter films, they're broken into houses. Well, here at our campus, our young men are broken into 4 houses: the House of Alliance, House of Decree, House of Justice, and the House of Expedition. Well, within those houses, they compete for their grades, behavior, amount of parent participation, community service efforts. If you name it, they can compete for it, they do so. but it's taken on a life of itself. And so each week, the houses have the house meetings. But before we have the house meetings, we have the competitions where we highlight all the accolades of the young men. And unfortunately, when there are demerits that have to be taken from a young man or house, we highlight those also. And so the young men look for the bragging rights of which house is on top. And what's it's taken and it taking a life of its own, the parents come in and are just as excited. So, for instance, we just finished our recycling project, and the parents, when they're bringing in items that their son's already here, hello, my name is such and such. My son is in the House of Alliance. We make sure that the House of Alliance get these points. So there's a true ownership, and now with the academic component, we challenge each other, but more importantly, we look at how the houses are performing academically also. So it's a full effort campus-wide with all stakeholders involved.
Wow, that's really good. I'd like to ask you more about the recycling project too, but
Yes, sir.
let me ask you, if you were sort of talking or counseling a parent,
Yes, sir.
and she or he said, you know, I really want to learn from what you've learned about boys,
Yes,
so that when my boy comes home, or when I'm raising my younger son,
Yes,
I know what to do that can make him more likely to be inspired, have a sense of purpose, have a sense of leadership. What would you advise from what you've learned from seeing boys?
To be consistent, firm, and fair.
Consistent, firm, and fair.
Yes, sir. Consistent in their expectations of a parent, as a parent, from the perspective of this is my son. These are the expectations I have for his education, and more importantly, how I'm going to support him through the process. Firm from the perspective of the young men and the parents understanding their roles, their responsibilities. We teach our young men, to him whom much is given, much is required. And so they understand that they have not only responsibilities to themselves to perform academically, but where there are areas and opportunities for them to support their brothers, they should do so. Our mission statement is to develop young men into impactful leaders through the development of their intellectual, moral, physical, social, and emotional skills for the global society tomorrow. We also tell our parents our plan and focus is also to create better husbands and fathers for our families and community. So therefore, they should see better sons at home. Their siblings should experience better brothers at home. That's all a part of us integrating not only the school, but also the home into this process. And so when we have to have those conversations where a young man may not be as responsible for his items around the campus, we remind them, your parents sacrificed a lot for you to be here. And in them sacrificing for you to be here, it's your responsibility to have good grades. It's your responsibility to exhibit great behavior. But more importantly, it's your responsibility to take care of anything that's given to you, because it's all a part of your development as a young man. And so sometimes bringing the parents back to realization that you are the adult. You are the lead of your house, whether it's two parents or a single parent household. Them understanding their roles and not being afraid of those roles also.
You were mentioning single parent versus two parent households. What have you seen about the role of dads, and how can dads be most effective, and when do dads come into tension with moms about maybe the mom wanting to be more protective and the dad wanting to be more boundary enforcement oriented, or the dad sort of pushing the child and maybe the mom saying, you know, you're pushing too hard, those types of dynamics. How do you work with those? And when you see boys that are very effective, what type of male-female parent dynamic do you see at home?
The question was kind of breaking up a little bit. Could you mind repeating it?
Sure. When you see boys that are really productive and motivated and happy and effective, what type of fathers do they have, and what type of father involvement? How important is the role of father and dad in the development of a boy?
The father figure is very important. Unfortunately, in our instance, about 65% of our young men come from single-parent households. And so that's a challenge at times, because there are fatherhood wounds that I explain to my faculty and staff that are not only going to come up for our young men, but more importantly, they're going to come up for us as a faculty and staff. And it's how we work through those. I myself am a product of a single-parent household. And so I do explain to the parents, I don't understand what it's like to be a single parent, but I understand what it's like to be the child of a single parent. And so therefore, it's crucial and important that you surround your sons, and in some instances when you have daughters at home also, around the best persons that you know are going to accelerate, but more importantly, highlight the best of what there is in the world. And in doing so, we try to create the best faculty and staff, as we say, this side of heaven, to serve our young men, gentlemen and young ladies that are true educators, or true professional educators that have a sense of where we're going with our mission statement, but more importantly, the work that we're doing with our young men. When we consider the backgrounds of our young men, we're about 84% free and reduced lunch. That has grown from 64%. So we also pay attention to the trends within our families, whether are two-parent households and single-parent households. We equip the parents with the tools to not only be active components of their child's education, but consistent components. So we have probably one of the largest, I would say, usage network of parents that use our online parent portal, where they can constantly track their students' grades, so they can have those conversations with the young men when they come home in regards to how they're performing in class, what their attendance looks like. So basically, everybody is enabled and engaged and expected to do so at all times for the young men to be successful here.
What do you do in your academy to prepare boys with a consciousness of becoming great dads? What's the curriculum, the message that says, you know, you're not only going to be a leader, but part of your leadership is your leadership as fathers? Do you have an emphasis on that at all?
The emphasis actually comes with them understanding the sense of themselves. I have what I like to say is my classroom, where we have morning lyceum Monday through Friday. And in morning lyceum, if you would go to a private school, they would call it chapel. But this is where we touch on the social and emotional development of our young men. In the fall, we do the 16 habits of mind. The one specifically that we target at the beginning of each school year is perseverance. We see ourselves as re-imaging young men. Our students are professional test takers, and we're putting them in an environment where they're learning to be problem solvers. And in becoming a problem solver, you have to understand not only yourself, but others. And we teach our young men, first person that they learn to lead is themselves. And so they understand that there is going to be some social and emotional struggles that they're going to go through. Within the morning lyceum, if we're preparing for a social event with the young ladies, we go through scenarios of what it looks like, how to approach a young lady, what does chivalry look like. The first lesson outside of the perseverance being taught as one of the 16 habits of mind is how they approach guests to our building, or how they approach guests in general when they're out. Giving a firm handshake, strong eye contact, verbalizing your name so that your guests or whoever you're speaking to can understand and realize that they're meeting a young man who's self-confident, but more importantly, proud in speaking to them.
If you had the support of a White House Council on Boys and Men, what type of positive, or, you know, is it irrelevant, with some type of national consciousness that was enhanced by a White House Council on Boys and Men, would that be of help to the efforts that you're making with your school?
Yes, sir, definitely. We realize we operate at times in a glass house, because everyone in the campus, in the city, and at times around the state and country have been watching what we're doing. Is it being effective? We realize and recognize that there is a crisis in America in regards to our young men, and we're just one of the campus that's doing some very good work, but we can always learn. With a platform like this, not only will we be able to share some of our best practices, but more importantly, we'd have the opportunity to learn from others. There are others that have done this work much longer than we have, and so we understand our usefulness in this work, but we are continuous learners, and being continuous learners, there are resources, there are platforms out there that we can learn that are even enhance what we're able to provide to our students each and every day.
You've talked a lot about attitude, and I really appreciate how crucial that is. Are there also concrete programs like robotics or vocational education or life skills like communication skills that have been helpful for you, or that you have worked with in the school?
Yes, sir. First and foremost, you have to learn to build a culture. One of the things I learned from several of my mentors that I've gained throughout this process is that the culture is defined by our expectations. So beyond that, our young men are immersed in pre-AP and AP level courses from 6th through 10th grade. We're at a grade each year until eventually we'll graduate our first class 2015. Within the midst of that, all of our young men are trained in AVID strategies. AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. Teaches time management, organizational skills, Socratic seminars, Cornell note-taking. All of our young men study foreign language. They have the selections of either Latin, Mandarin, or Spanish. For our students that are studying foreign language, the intent is that they become fluent in that language to read, write, and speak. We actually had 4 young men to travel to Taiwan with me last summer that was studying Mandarin. 8 young men traveled to Italy, and we have about 21. The entire group is 21, but 16 young men that'll be traveling to Costa Rica that are studying Spanish.
Wow.
So full intent is that the young men master that language. Then additionally, we have the #1 middle school debate team and the #2 upper school debate team. A full fine arts program inclusive of instrumental ensemble, vocal ensemble, and our arts program. And when selecting teachers, I'm proud to say we're a campus full of hybrids. Our art teacher, for instance, is still a practicing artist. On average, majority of our teachers have about 4 to 5 different preparation periods each day. So there's a commitment by the faculty and staff. Many of our faculty and staff have the dual certification where they can teach middle school and high school level courses. So it takes a special person just to sit down for the interview. Then additionally, we have a robotics team. Again, with our robotics team, we participate in the first robotics and best robotics competition. But we've been afforded an opportunity to have a grant writer here on the campus that's a part of our instructional staff. But one of the grants that we wrote allowed us to introduce robotics to the elementary school up the street to the 3rd through 5th grade students. And so that's been exciting to hear the young men's stories of their journey up to the campus, but then more importantly, watching those young men and young ladies' eyes light up when they're learning how to program a robot. And so we realize that, again, this platform that we have is not only opening up additional opportunities for our students, but also for the community also. Additional partnership, again, teaching our young men, to him whom much is given, much is required. We have a partnership with University Outreach, which is aligns University of Texas at Arlington and the University of Texas at Dallas, and we host SAT camps here for our young men and students throughout the community. And so on average, we average between 100 and 150 students that participate in those camps. So we're learning to leverage our opportunities to not only support and enhance and increase opportunities for our young men, but for our young people from the community.
That's really wonderful. Last question. When a boy goes home, and let's say he's being raised by a single mom,
yes,
and his friends that he grew up with, they're now into drugs or they're now forming a gang, yes, and they say, we need you, we want you, what are you, too good for us? You go into this little leadership academy, and they start mocking him and putting him down. How can the mom best handle that, and how do you prepare the boy to not get sucked back into a different system of approval that mocks him if he doesn't join?
Yes. We talk about code switching. I am from Dallas, graduated from Dallas Independent School District, but actually from kindergarten through 8th grade, I was in private school. But everyone in my neighborhood that I grew up in were in the public school system. They accepted me because they knew the expectations my mom had for my education, but then more importantly, what I had for myself. So there was a hunger and desire that we all had, and sometimes it was lost. When teaching our young men code switching, we discussed there are always going to be 2 paths in life, a left and a right. You're either going to be a leader or a follower. And if you choose to follow those that are going down the wrong path, you're going to have those consequences. So in teaching them that they're going and teaching them to understand the first person you lead is going to be yourself. We tell them that there are going to be some unpopular decisions you're going to make that may affect your relationship with your friends. But they're sincerely and truly your friends, they would accept that decision because they know you're making the best decision for themselves. So they understand that they will have friends that start off with them that they may lose through the course of time. But while those friends are in their lives for that moment, not only do they hold themselves accountable, but they hold their friends accountable to make wiser decisions. So for a lot of our young men, what's been rewarding when they're going back to their neighborhoods, they're not having necessarily those issues. And for several of our young men, they play the traditional sports at their home schools. And it's a proud moment when you go in as a principal to watch your young men play football, basketball, or run track. and they're the captains of their teams. So again, they're not there with their peers throughout the course of the school day, but their peers accept them for the decisions they've made as individual students and recognize the leadership that's being developed within them and accept them back as leaders in their community.
Thank you.
As the technical advisor here, I have to just jump in as we're wrapping it up and just say I went to Woodward School for Boys in Washington, D.C.
Yes, sir.
And I really am reflecting on all the words of the value of not having the girls around just so we could learn to relate to each other and stay focused. And then when it switched to a boy and girls school, it became a lot harder to stay focused just on our activities and being a boy. So I just really honored to be part of this and eager for us to be able to help you further with it as well. So Warren, I'll pass it back to you.
I just want to say goodbye and thank you very much for all the insights you've given us and for the understanding of competition and codes and a whole attitude toward life and a way of having the strength to discern who your real friends are and how to develop moral character. I see much more so than I expected that what I hear about is not so much specific programs, but the whole culture generation for boys to become effective leaders. And I see that I really respect the efforts you're making in that direction, Nakia. And thank you very much for joining us today.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for having me, and I thank you all for this platform. And I look forward to future opportunities for us to collaborate and also for us to learn from you all also.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.